national emergency. We're talking about an invasion of our country with drugs, with human traffickers.
Congress should have stepped up.
This political crisis that is being manufactured.
Democrats as well that call this a manufactured crisis, which is absolutely means that these are people in denial.
Aurora police are providing new details about what happened when a man described as a disgruntled employee shot his way through a warehouse. 6 people are dead, 5 police officers wounded.
We're having somber moments because, again, lives were lost. But we know that this is what they do every day.
Andrew McCabe is trying to walk back those comments to a degree, claiming his 25th Amendment talk was
that you guys will no longer have the opportunity. You just anti-Amazon at this point.
Well, they say it's 25,000 jobs. Is it?
I wouldn't say train is soft. They rock.
Yeah. Well,
train is
for all of
those
the song, though, is kind of a soft. We have some pretty strong beats that could be coming too.
True.
Thank
Sometimes
you.
we're really
we have no
pumping
idea
it.
what's coming in on the show ever.
That's true.
I tell you what's strong is sitting on the couch with you. It is great to be back in New
Griff.
York on the couch, although I miss my friends in Mexico.
Griff brought me a gift, okay? I'm just
boy.
going to show everybody.
Here it comes.
He brought
Right now,
me a map from the caravan. This is an authentic caravan map, like a real thing.
Look at that.
Where they're headed all the way, big arrows from Griff.
That is,
Thank you very
as
much.
someone who's
this
been
is one of the best gifts I've ever
in a war
gotten.
zone, the map is a prize sort of trophy. And this was the caravan, had the map out, and they were looking at where they were going to go just south. They ended up in, obviously, Piedras Negras, which is across from Eagle Pass, Texas, but they may have gone a little more to the east. But, yeah, there you go. There's the battle map.
Thank you, Griff. I appreciate it.
And, of course, that map leads us to what ended up being a national emergency declaration because the president was not getting the money that he requested for a wall. Just to give some context, that wall is going to be in the RGV sector where we have seen the heaviest illegal crossing.
That's right. So yesterday in the Rose Garden, you may have seen it, you may not have seen it, but the president came out and said, I'm signing this bill. I don't like it. I'll sign it. However, at the same time, I'm prepared. I am declaring a national emergency because of what's happening at our border. Here was the president yesterday in the Rose Garden.
We're talking about an invasion of our country with drugs, with human traffickers, with all types of criminals and gangs. And when you listen to politicians, in particular certain Democrats, they say it all comes through the port of entry. It's wrong. They say walls don't work. Walls work 100%. Nancy knows it. Chuck knows it. They all know it. And the only reason we're up here talking about this is because of the election. And this is one of the ways they think they can possibly win is by obstruction. We will have a national emergency, and we will then be sued, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court, and hopefully we'll get a fair shake, and we'll win in the Supreme Court.
You know,
I love
that was amazing.
It was an honest moment, and he's just going through, listen, I'm ready for it. They're going to sue us. We're going to get to the Supreme Court. We've been here before. It's happened before. A lot of people, though, asking questions about where the money is going to come from for the border wall, this extra money. And we're going to let you know now, $1.375 billion is DHS appropriation.
That's from the bill.
From the bill.
Yep.
$2.5 billion DOD counter-drug support. $3.5 billion DOD military construction budget, $600 million from the Treasury Department forfeiture fund.
And by the way, I love that even though it's the smallest number, that's actually El Chapo. Remember the drug lord that just got convicted? The Treasury Department put out a press release yesterday saying that at least some part of that $600 million is actual El Chapo money. So El Chapo, thanks for the
Which Ted Cruz had floated, remember. Ted Cruz was one of the first people that came out and said, you know what, we should get some of this money from El Chapo and we should put it toward the border. He was one of the first people, and he's probably sitting there saying, well done.
He should, and they should. Listen, this is what conservatives have refused to do for a long time. They've been very good at groveling at the table and hoping they get a good deal. There's people that are concerned about national emergency. Do you call it? Do you not call it? Ultimately, if you believe this is an emergency, which the president does, sincerely, you can see it. His moments with the angel moms were probably the most powerful part of the press conference yesterday.
Right.
When they talk about stats and everything, they said, these people, they understand what's going on here, why the problem exists. He finally said, this will happen, I'm going to do it, and I'll make sure it's constitutional in the process. I've got lawyers to defend it, so that'll all play out.
I don't know that he had a choice because he was declaring he didn't like the original bill that was presented. He rejected that. You had the government shutdown. A lot of people saying, oh, president's going to take the heat for this. And ultimately, you can't have a permanent shutdown. So at this point, he has been out there saying this is a national emergency. This is a humanitarian crisis, drug trafficking, human trafficking. If you're going to make that your center point, I don't know how you don't follow through and then say, you know what, we have to declare a national emergency. emergency. I have to shift this money around. This is the crisis I've been talking about for a long time, and let Democrats challenge it. He had to stick. Right. This was the only way he was able to fulfill his campaign promise with obstructionist Democrats.
And he knew lawsuits would come. If you just look at the headlines now, here we'll show you a few of them. Daily Caller, Trump was sued over his national emergency declaration in less than 6 hours.
Took 6 hours?
That's a long time, actually.
LA Times. California to sue Trump administration over a national emergency declaration. The governor out there taking great pride for doing that. The Hill, the ACLU, announces lawsuit against Trump over blatantly illegal national emergency. AP Judiciary Chair seeks hearing on emergency claim. Just for our viewers, the National Emergency Act was established in 1976. Yep. Never before has it come under such heavy scrutiny as we're seeing now with these lawsuits.
Yeah. And what else has not come under this kind of scrutiny is the national injunctions that come from one judge in one circuit to stop the prerogative of the executive. So I'm sure it'll be the Ninth Circuit where this will be challenged.
Yep.
The Ninth Circuit will issue a stay. The whole thing will stop. Then it'll have to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and they'll determine, like they did with the travel ban, whether or not it should happen. And it just seems a little out of order. And we're going to have a guest on today that'll talk about what does it really make sense that one judge gets that kind of prerogative?
Yep.
What, I mean,
right.
Yeah. Listen, he wasn't elected. The president was elected. Congress can check the president. The courts can check the president. But one judge in one district court shouldn't be able to check the president.
Speaking of Congress challenging, Maxine Waters, the Ninth Circuit is in California. Maxine Waters is from California. Everything
we haven't
seems
talked
to
about
come
her
from California. She is rallying the troops to stand against this national emergency. Take a listen.
It's time for everybody to stand up, all hands on deck, to refuse this president these fake emergency powers that he'd like to have. And so I'm urging everybody, get together, rally in every community across this country all this weekend. Send a message to Washington, D.C. No, Mr. President, we're not going to allow you to do this.
You know, you got to love this. All of a sudden, these left-wingers are like, oh, Trump is lawless. These are the same people that defend sanctuary cities. These are the same people that defended President Obama on DACA. And it was really interesting. Victor David Hanson of the Hoover Institution, he remembers how Obama's actions went through and how nobody on the left cared. Take a listen.
Barack Obama was not going to get a two-thirds majority in the Senate for the Iran treaty, so he just simply changed the nomenclature and said it's an Iran deal, and nobody on the left cared. He gave blanket amnesties all the time to DACA and Dreamers, and he did it with a pen and phone, so I think it's a little bit psychodramatic to suddenly say the Constitution is in danger.
Yeah, I mean, 13 national emergencies declared by Obama, and none bigger than, and it was not a formal national emergency, what he did with the Iran deal, which was never a formal treaty ratified by Congress.
Right.
It was done deceptively in front of the American people with a bunch of side deals, with a bunch of cash we didn't know about. Who approved the billions that went to the mullahs?
Right.
No, really, no, that's an honest question, because that's what's going to happen with this emergency declaration.
Yeah.
You can't move the money, therefore it wasn't appropriated. What in the Iran deal, it wasn't appropriated.
But Victor Davis Hanson's soundbite there is really important, because you are going to be told all this weekend and going into next week that the president declared a national emergency when he should not have. Correct. And he actually made a soundbite that may have hurt himself when he said, I didn't have to do it, I want to do it faster. But the point is, if you talk to the Border Patrol officials that I've spent the last year of my life with, they will tell you we're at an overwhelming number of illegal crossings. It is more than double, triple, 4 times the amount in some sectors that we were seeing last year. And it is new because they're family units and they have no place to put them. Yeah. And that is why the president is fighting. And that is why Victor Davis Hanson's soundbite is so good, because, you know, at some point, President Trump's going to win an award in Profiles of Courage for taking the heat he is in fighting for the officials on that border.
Also, the National Emergencies Act is bestowed on the president by Congress. This isn't the same thing as what President Obama did with DACA. It's not. That was him deciding on a whim that he didn't want to enforce federal law and he wanted to exempt a group of people. This is bestowed upon him by Congress. If you don't like that he's using a national emergency, fine, but don't correlate the two things. It's very different. All right, we are going to jump into some headlines for you this morning, and we begin with a Fox News alert. A fired factory worker guns down 5 co-workers and injures 5 police officers during a shooting rampage. The 15-year employee immediately opening fire as police rushed inside the Henry Pratt manufacturing plant just outside Chicago. The gunman, Gary Martin, was killed during the shootout. All officers shot are in stable condition. We'll have a live report from Aurora coming up in 30 minutes. 2 men are released from police custody after being questioned in the alleged attack on Empire actor Jussie Smollett. Chicago police citing new evidence for not charging them. The brothers from Nigeria were taken into custody Wednesday after returning from Nigeria. Police say at least one worked on Empire. This comes just hours after authorities denied local reports that the racist and homophobic attack on the actor was a hoax. Vice President Mike Pence is wrapping up his European trip with a speech at the Munich Security Conference moments ago. Pence doubling down on the administration's commitment to NATO, while also calling on European allies to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal.
The time has come for our European partners to stop undermining U.S. sanctions against this murderous revolutionary regime. The time has come for our European partners to stand with us and with the Iranian people.
The vice president will meet with German Chancellor Angela Merkel before returning to Washington tonight. A 91-year-old mailman is retiring with a perfect record after 69 years on the job. Jack Lund began his career in 1949 at 21 years old. His Utah co-workers say he's the whole package, always making his deliveries despite bad weather or car trouble. Lund was honored for his dedicated service at a ceremony with a U.S. flag and a special postal artwork. That's pretty amazing. Those are your headlines. Imagine working 69 years, you got your perfect
really
performance.
Perfect attendance.
I wonder if they'll say that about us.
Nope. not even close. Dave's laughing
close.
at us.
Dave's like, yeah, no, you already failed.
No comment on that.
Man.
All right, brand new comments from fired FBI Deputy Director Andy McCabe pointing the finger at those who wanted Trump out of office.
Deputy Attorney General was definitely very concerned about the president, about his capacity, and about his intent at that point in time.
So what should happen to Rod Rosenstein? Will the new Attorney General take action? We'll ask Andrew McCarthy coming up.
That'll be good. Plus, Vladimir Putin hitting the mats. Literally, the photos not being revealed.
The discussion of the 25th Amendment was simply Rod raised the issue and discussed it with me in the context of thinking about how many other cabinet officials might support such an effort.
Brand new comments from fired FBI Deputy Director Andy McCabe saying it was Rod Rosenstein who discussed ousting President Trump from office. Here to weigh in is Fox News contributor and former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Andrew McCarthy. Good morning, Andy. What do you make of this?
Morning, Griff.
Amazing interview.
Well, Griff, I think that what it does is highlight something that we heard months ago in a report in the New York Times. I think, McCabe is trying to sell his book. 60 Minutes is being hyped by CBS. But what you have here is a situation where you have two sub-cabinet officials who are having a serious conversation about a potential mechanism for removing the president from power. It actually isn't a lawful mechanism, and these two characters actually don't have the authority to invoke it. They're not cabinet officials. They're not the vice president. By the 25th Amendment's own terms, they could not have invoked it themselves. But, when the deputy attorney general and the acting FBI director are talking about removing the president of the United States who's been duly elected, that's a pretty serious event.
Well, sure. And so do you believe then that Congress should pull Rod Rosenstein up on the Hill to learn more?
Well, I've thought that he should testify for a long time, not just about this. There's an awful lot of things that he should testify about. But, Griff, I really think it's not that hard, as I've been saying for over a year now, to understand what happened here. Rosenstein wrote a memorandum that was used as basically the explanation that was first put out by the administration for removing FBI Director Comey. He expected to be broadly praised for it because if you read the memo, it's all this stuff about how the only bipartisan consensus we have in Washington is that Comey overstepped his bounds in the Hillary investigation and needs to be removed. He thought this was this bipartisan beatific moment that he was going to be praised for. And what happened was he ended up being roundly criticized by Democrats because when the president removed Comey, they saw an opportunity to portray that as an obstruction of justice. So suddenly Rosenstein, who's never been criticized by anyone before, is taking the arrows. And he, I think, thought he needed to prove himself to the people that he's been, pleasing all these years. So he wanted to show him he was on the team. So sure, let's talk about how we can remove the president. Let's talk about the 25th Amendment. Let's talk about maybe somebody wiring up to collect evidence on him, which you only do because you're talking about the 25th Amendment. And then finally, what did he do on the, at the end of that period of 9 days? He appoints Robert Mueller as the special counsel, even though they don't have a criminal predicate for the appointment.
Andy, so let me just cut to the chase here. Is this evidence then that these disgraced FBI officials are succeeding in trying to push President Trump out?
No, I don't think there was ever a prayer, Griff, that they were going to be able to pull this off. What it is, though, is an indication that for a very long time, they were trying to make a case on Trump, and I think there was political motivation behind it.
Andrew McCarthy, thank you very much for joining us. Have a good Saturday.
Thanks, Griff.
All right, Beto O'Rourke, you know him. He says he's willing to tear down the existing border wall. Now a 2020 Democratic hopeful is backing him up.
I could look at it and see which part he means and why, and if it makes sense, I could support it.
Senator Gillibrand throwing her hat in the ring. Well, we're going to ask former acting ICE Director Tom Homan what he thinks about that. Plus, Rick Reichmuth is live from Daytona International Speedway with a preview of the Daytona 500 coming straight ahead. Some quick court headlines for you. The Supreme Court agrees to hear an expedited appeal on adding a citizenship question to the 2020 census. Justices will hear arguments in April. The Trump administration says the question is crucial to calculating the population, but critics claim it could discourage immigrants from participating. In this, a terrorist who claimed President Trump's tweet politicized his case can still face the death penalty. Sayfullo Saipov is charged with killing 8 people on a Manhattan bike path with a truck on Halloween in 2017. The president tweeted in part, quote, should get death penalty. A judge ruled there's no proof it persuaded the Department of Justice. Pete?
Griff, thank you. All right, President Trump taking on the border crisis by declaring a national emergency.
We're going to confront the national security crisis on our southern border, and we're going to do it one way or the other. Whether it's $8 billion or $2 billion or $1.5 billion, it's going to build a lot of wall. We're getting it done because we have an invasion of drugs, invasion of gangs, invasion of people, and it's unacceptable.
Here to react, former acting ICE director and Fox News contributor Tom Homan. Welcome, Tom.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Now, what do you make of this? This is obviously a very controversial decision. You know, Trump taking heat from the left, obviously, and also from some on the right. What do you make of his decision to declare a national emergency?
Okay, I think it's the right decision. And let me explain something that a lot of people don't understand, because I didn't want this bill signed. I mean, there's some terrible, terrible language in here. I was hoping for a CR for 7 to 10 days to try to change some of the language in here that I think will entice more illegal immigration. However, when I talk to people on the Hill and in the White House, the Democrats weren't going to allow a CR, right? The CR has to start in the House. They had the president in the corner. Either sign this terrible bill or shut the government down. So he chose, I think, the smartest way. You know what? Okay, I'll sign it, and I'll take some executive actions. I'll declare an emergency and try to fix it. Once again, this president is on his own to do the right thing for the American people.
Tom, explain 1 or 2 things in the bill that you don't like, because you're exactly right. They wanted him to sign bad ideas, which effectively happened.
First of all, they're funding ICE for less beds they currently have filled. So unless they move some money around, ICE has to release people. Illegal immigration is going up, and they want to take beds away. That just don't make sense. That's just dumb. But the thing that really angers me is the section in there that parents and sponsors of UACs cannot be held accountable. A parent or sponsor in this country can hire a criminal organization, put their child in the hands of a criminal organization to be smuggled to this country, and they can remain in the shadows. Up to this point, parents and sponsors were worried about ICE getting their information from HHS and being held accountable. What this does is every parent and sponsor in the country now that was holding back, they're afraid of ICE action, is going to say, you know what, now I can bring my child, because this bill just gave me amnesty. I won't say amnesty. It gives me protection from enforcement of any kind. No prosecution, can't be put in criminal proceedings. So 2 things. That's going to increase the number of UACs come to this country. So the hypocrisy of the Democrats, I don't want to hear another word about family separations and zero tolerance. when families were separate because the parent was prosecuted, they just wrote legislation to put children in the hands of criminal organizations. That is ridiculous, and it's far worse than anything that this administration has ever done.
Yeah. Tom, I got to ask you about the race to the left from left-wingers on this issue. You now have Beto O'Rourke and Kirsten Gillibrand saying they would tear down the border wall. Take a listen. I want to get your reaction.
Would you, if you could, would you take the wall down now, here?
Yes.
Like you have a wall.
Absolutely.
Knock it down.
I'd take the wall down.
What about a proposal from Beto O'Rourke to actually remove some of the existing wall? He was talking about El Paso, but the idea of dismantling some of the wall, good idea, bad idea?
I could look at it and see which part he means and why, and if it makes sense, I could support it.
Does this surprise you at all?
I mean, these people are going to have to run in a general election. It's insanity.
No, look, they've gone so far left. The best thing that ever happened for this administration is these people go so far left. I think most American people understand. Beto O'Rourke obviously isn't looking at the data. Every place they built a wall, every single place they built a wall, illegal immigration has decreased. As far as Gillibrand, as a native New Yorker, she's an embarrassment to the state of New York. She doesn't know what she'll change her mind tomorrow. She used to be pro-immigration enforcement. She used to want law enforcement to enforce immigration law. Then she wanted to run for senator and threw all out the window. Then when she ran a midterm saying, you reelect me to my Senate seat, and I want to serve out my full term. That lasted, what, 60 days? So you know what, Gillibrand, what she says doesn't matter to me. She'll change her mind tomorrow. She's an embarrassment to the state of New York. I'm a native New Yorker. I'm embarrassed for her.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's true. Tom Homan, thank you very much
Thanks
for your
for
time.
being
We
here.
appreciate it. Good stuff.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, should parents be able to decide if they want to vaccinate their kids? One state says nope. Well, we'll tell you where coming up.
Plus, Colin Kaepernick cashing in his major settlement with the NFL that may mean big money for the former quarterback.
Really?
Yep.
And Rick is live in Daytona Beach, Florida. A better place than here. We're gearing up for the Daytona 500. Rick, good morning.
Woo!
A better place and a warmer place for sure. This is the best time of the year. Racing season begins, and it begins right now with the biggest race of the year. We are live here with the best seats in the house. We're the lonely people here in the house right now, but that will change throughout the day, and we have incredible interviews coming up. First one up, coming soon, will be Eric Almirola. Stay tuned. Fox and Friends will be right back.
The response by our officers saved lives. They took on gunfire, but they pressed on until they located the shooter.
An employee about to be fired guns down 5 of his coworkers at a company where he worked for 15 years.
Horror playing out at a warehouse in Illinois as police officers rushed toward a hail of gunfire to protect those trapped inside.
Jeff Paul is live in Aurora, Illinois, where 5 officers are recovering from gunshot wounds. Good morning, Jeff.
Yeah, good morning, Griffin. Investigators are still on location as they continue to piece together what's being described as a very large crime scene. We're also learning more about the man who police say is responsible for the killings. Investigators say 45-year-old Gary Martin was a worker at Henry Pratt Manufacturing, and they say he was about to be fired. His mother reportedly told the local newspaper that he was, quote, way too stressed out. Police say using a handgun, Martin walked into the building and
Knowing that lives lost, as I was talking to a few officers, they said they felt like they saved a lot of lives today, but they're going to be concentrating on the 5 victims that they couldn't. And so right now there's, on one hand, a sigh of relief that our officers are going to be okay.
To some headlines for you this morning. 2 police officers on their way to a call slam into a vehicle at an intersection. The horrific crash caught on camera. From using personal or religious reasons to stop their kids from getting vaccinated. The State House is expected to vote on it in the coming weeks. There are at least 54 confirmed cases of measles in Washington. Wow, 54 cases. Former San Francisco 49ers player Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid settle their collusion suits with the NFL. They accused Commissioner Roger Goodell and team owners of keeping them off the field for kneeling during the national anthem. Kaepernick hasn't played since the 2016 season, and Reid played for the Carolina Panthers last season. The details of the settlement are confidential. What does Vladimir Putin do after a tough day of talks? Well, he trains with judo fighters. Putin, a black belt, warming up with the Russian team in Sochi. I think I got that right. Yeah. Sochi. Also throwing some fighters to the mat. Putin injured his finger during one toss. And a female fighter who won Olympic bronze in 2016 also threw him to the mat. Wow, Russian media apparently didn't show this. Putin then laced up his skates to play some hockey with the president of Belarus. Wow. He's pretty fierce, Putin.
Don't hurt your dictator.
No, it's a bad idea.
No, that's a bad idea.
Can't end well.
What do I do here? If I don't do it right, I might die.
That's true. That's a good way to put it.
Good propaganda, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's President's Day weekend. Did you know that? And for NASCAR fans, that means one thing. Racing season returns with the Daytona 500.
Our very own. There we go. Rev those engines. Rick Reichmuth is live from Daytona International Speedway with a preview of the 61st edition of the great race. I got to know, Rick, who's going to win?
Oh, that's what you're going to toss me with? Who's going to win? I can't answer that. How about we'll go with no? I'm not. I've got a lot of people to interview before I make that kind of a prediction here. Ask me that towards the end of the day tomorrow, right, and then we'll answer. The best part about this weekend, personally, is I get to ditch the big puffy coat from New York weather and come down to Florida, which is pretty great this time of year. Get a little preview of spring. I will tell you, the buds are coming out on the trees already. A very early spring starting, but that also just means it's race season. This is the first race of the year. It's the 61st running of the Daytona 500. A lot of big stories going on this year, one of which there's a guy in his second year. His name's William Byron, taught himself how to race, and he is sitting in pole position, which means he's going to be racing first starting off this race, which is an incredible feat for a young guy like that. A lot of people we're going to be talking to over the weekend, including today. Coming up, we're talking with Eric Almirola, who is one of the potential favorites to win, as well as kind of the all-time favorite, or somebody who will always be a favorite, and that is Kyle Busch. And we're also going to be riding in the pace car, taking a few laps around the course here with Austin Dillon, which is going to be incredibly exciting. Obviously, this is considered the Super Bowl of racing. It's different than most other sports because the biggest event of the year is the first event of the year, and that's what's going on here. One of the things that can really impact the race is weather, and I will tell you this year, weather is looking pretty great for this race. Everybody very excited that things, at least no big precipitation in sight. That means the race can take off. Talking about the weather, let's look a little bit at this here across the country as you're waking up this morning. Very cold again up across the far northern plains. You see the warmth down across the southeast. Well above average temperatures continue, especially across parts of Florida, and that's going to be the case throughout all the day today, warming up into the upper 80s by the time you get to Monday. Not the case as you go farther towards the north. In fact, across parts of the southeast, get ready for a drencher this week across areas of the southern Appalachians. We could be looking at some flooding, some spots. By the time we get, say, towards Thursday and Friday this week, maybe 7 to 8 inches of rain, and that's going to be really problematic. Out across the west, we continue to deal with all of that drenching rain, the flooding that we're seeing, and the incredible amounts of mountain snow. All right, guys, tons coming up here all morning long right here from Daytona. Back to you.
Rick, I'm hearing about a couple football players, J.J. Watt, Julian Edelman. Are they a part of the show, too?
Yeah. We are working on it.
Working on it?
You just called us out. We're working on it. They have not confirmed to us yet, but we are working on it.
That could be pretty cool. Rick, love it. And are you going to drive or ride in the pace car?
They won't let me drive. They won't let me drive. I wish they would. Have you ever done a lap or two around the track here?
No, I would.
No, it looks so fun, though.
It is incredibly fun, but when you get out there on the banks, like I honestly don't know that I would be able to drive it. It's pretty. You watch it on TV and it looks like it's intense. When you're in it, you feel like you're going to completely topple over.
We have faith.
Well, we'll be watching.
We'll be back to you. Rick, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
That's pretty cool. You know, when you fly into Daytona, the raceway is right next to the airport in the little Daytona airport. And so literally as you come in, you look at that thing and you're like, wow, it's really quite impressive.
Yeah, I'm jealous. That looks fun.
All right, well, question for you guys. Could you pass a basic U.S. citizenship test? A new survey shows that a lot of Americans cannot.
Plus, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez celebrating Amazon's exit from New York. But what impact could their departure have on the economy? Susan Lee from Fox Business Network is here, right here, to tell us. Hi.
Welcome back. A couple of quick Hollywood headlines, my favorite. The Oscars will air all awards live and without edits this year. The Academy reversing its decision to award 4 categories during the commercial breaks after facing backlash from members. The 91st Academy Awards airs Sunday, February 24th, ensuring, yes, again, low ratings. And Courtney Cox and Jennifer Aniston having their own airtime issues, you might say. The Friends co-stars making an emergency landing in California after their private jet, rough, blew a tire during takeoff. The two and their entourage, thankfully unhurt, quickly switched planes, like you and I would, of course. Soon they were taking off again, reportedly headed to Mexico for Aniston's 50th birthday. She's 50? I'm old. Jed, down to you.
Thanks, Pete. Well, Amazon dropping its plan to build one of their headquarters in New York City and taking a potential 25,000 jobs with it. Despite all that, some on the left taking a victory lap, including Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has been criticized after putting pressure on the company to get out of the Big Apple. This morning, she's standing by her anti-Amazon stance.
This is a celebration of is that everyday people in the community stood up. Where are these jobs? What are they? What's the breakdown? All of a sudden, the math got really fuzzy.
Here with her reaction, Fox Business correspondent Susan Lee. So, Susan, what is the implication? This was a pretty big decision. You had de Blasio, you had Cuomo coming out in favor of this. This, a lot of people are saying is going to hurt New York in a big way. What do you say?
I think New York lost out in this. This could have been a generational, transformative event, right? With 25,000 high-paying, good salary jobs coming here to New York City, on average $150,000 each, and that could have gone to 40,000 over the years and brought in $27 billion in tax revenues, right, over 25 years. So if you think about it, these tax incentives, they're saying, oh, $3 billion. You get $27 billion back. And by the way, the industry, the banking industry, has really been shall we say, the foundations of the finances and the tax revenues in the city. That industry is shrinking. You need to get into technology, which is growing. So I think they missed out big time.
It also seems like they just didn't understand, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, how tax breaks work. She seems to imply, she was implying like, oh, well, you know, if we're going to give $3 billion to Amazon, we could just invest in subways and schools. No, the $3 billion wasn't just sitting there. No. That's a tax break off of Amazon's investment in our economy.
That's
so
right.
They need an